When I bought my house in Willow Creek Estates, I thought I was making a solid investment. The neighborhood was quiet, the homes were well maintained, and the real estate agent assured me that the whole was low-key, just a simple association to keep the lawns mowed and the mailboxes looking nice. That was before Jonathan Steele took over. Jonathan Steele wasn't just an HOA president. He was a dictator with a clipboard. He ran the association like it was his personal fiefdom, issuing ridiculous fines for the smallest infractions and making up new rules whenever he felt like it. At first, I tried to stay out of his way. I followed the rules, paid my dues, and ignored the horror stories from my neighbors. But then Steele started going after me. The first signs of trouble, it started small. One morning, I found a bright yellow violation notice taped to my front door. Violation: lawn height exceeds 3.5 inches. Fine, $75. I frowned. My lawn was freshly mowed. I pulled out a tape measure and checked. Exactly 3 inches. I called the whole office and got a bored-sounding woman named Linda. "Yeah, we got a complaint," she said, yawning. "A complaint from who?" I asked. "Can't disclose that. Just pay the fine, and it won't go up." I refused. The next week, I got another notice. This time, the fine had doubled. The HOA's list of insane rules. The more I looked into the HOA's rules, the more absurd they became. Trash cans must be brought in within 30 minutes of pickup, or it's a $50 fine. No vehicles in the driveway overnight, or you get towed. Holiday decorations must be removed within 48 hours after a holiday. Miss the deadline, and it's a $100 fine. One neighbor, Mrs. Campbell, was fined $200 because her Christmas wreath was still on her door on December 27th. Another guy down the street had a blue flower pot instead of a beige one. $150 fine. And then there was Mr. Peterson, who got a $500 fine because his shutters were the wrong shade of brown. Steele's power trip. Steele didn't just enforce the rules. He enjoyed it. If you questioned him, he smirked and said, "The rules exist for a reason." If you refused to pay a fine, he tacked on extra fees and threatened to put a lion on your home. And if you spoke out against him at an home meeting, he'd find new ways to make your life hell. I learned that firsthand when I challenged my lawn fine. I showed up at an home meeting, evidence in hand, photos of my lawn, a video of me measuring the grass height, and a printout of the community guidelines. I laid it all out, proving that Steele was wrong. The other homeowners muttered in agreement. Steele? He just leaned back in his chair and smirked. "Well," he said, "we recently updated the guidelines. As of last month, the maximum grass height is 2.5 inches. Gasps filled the room. Someone shouted, "That's not in the bylaws." Steele shrugged. "It is now. And the fines are non-refundable." That's when I knew I wasn't dealing with a reasonable person. Steele wasn't running the HOA for the community. He was running it for himself. The no trucks allowed rule. Then came the final straw. A week later, I woke up to find another bright orange violation notice taped to my front door. Violation: truck parked in driveway overnight. Fine: $250 per night. I blinked. I had lived here for years with my truck parked in my own damn driveway. I checked the whole bylaws. Nothing about trucks. I sent an email demanding an explanation. Steele responded within minutes. The HOA has received multiple complaints regarding large work vehicles lowering property values. A new policy has been enacted to prohibit oversized vehicles from being parked in driveways. Please remove your truck immediately. I checked the timestamp on the policy update. It had been added that morning. That was when I lost it. I fired back. You can't make up rules overnight and fine people retroactively. I'm not moving my truck. Steele's response: then expect consequences. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I found out soon enough. The HOA steals my truck. The next morning, I walked outside, and my truck was gone. At first, I thought it was stolen. My heart pounded as I looked up and down the street. Then I saw it, a bright red violation notice on my garage door. Your vehicle has been impounded by Willow Creek HOA for noncompliance. To recover it, you must pay the fine of $1,500. I saw red. I called the police. They told me it was a civil matter. They couldn't help. I called Steele. He laughed. Maybe next time you'll follow the rules, he said, voice dripping with smugness. I gritted my teeth. That's when I dug deeper. I looked up the tow company listed on the notice. No website, no business listing. I called the number. It went straight to voicemail. And then I made a shocking discovery. The tow company didn't exist. The owner of the impound lot, Steele's best friend. That's when I realized I wasn't just getting my truck back. I was going to take Steele down. For good. I stood there, staring at the violation notice plastered on my garage door, my fists clenching at my sides. My truck gone. I took a deep breath, trying to suppress the rage burning in my chest. This wasn't just about a whole fine anymore. Steele had stolen my truck. I marched back inside, grabbed my phone, and dialed the number listed for the towing company. Straight to voicemail. I called again, and again. Nothing. That's when I realized something wasn't right. I pulled up Google and searched for the company name. Nothing. No website, no address, no business registration. The only place the name appeared, on whole violation notices. That's when it hit me. The tow company didn't exist. The fake tow company. I dug deeper. I found county business records and searched for the towing company's registration. It wasn't there, but something else was. The lot where my truck was supposedly being held, it was owned by a guy named Dale Curtis. I didn't recognize the name at first, until I looked him up on Facebook. Dale Curtis was Jonathan Steele's best friend. So this wasn't just some HOA enforcement nonsense. This was a scam. Steele and his buddy were towing vehicles and demanding fines to get them back. Illegal, unethical, and downright theft. I cracked my knuckles. Steele messed with the wrong guy. Calling the cops and hitting a wall, I immediately called the police and told them my truck had been stolen. The officer listened to my story, and at first he seemed sympathetic, until I mentioned the hole. Ah, he said with a sigh, this is a civil dispute. What? They stole my truck. Well, the officer said, they'll argue that it was an HOA-enforced tow and that you're refusing to comply with community rules. It's a gray area. Your best bet is to take it up with small claims court. I was fuming. So you're telling me that anyone can slap a fake fine on my door and steal my vehicle? The officer hesitated. I didn't say that. But these whole cases get messy. We try not to get involved unless there's clear criminal intent. I hung up, boiling with rage. Fine. If the cops wouldn't help, I'd handle this myself. The homeowner uprising begins. I knew I wasn't the first person Steele had done this to. He'd been abusing his power for years, so I started knocking on doors. I went to my neighbors, Mr. Peterson, Mrs. Campbell, the guy with the wrong shade of brown shutters. Turns out, Steele had been running the same scam on multiple people. Mr. Peterson's motorcycle had been towed and held for ransom last year. Mrs. Campbell had to pay $800 in late fees just to keep her house from being liened. Another neighbor, Dan, was fined $1,000 for parking violations when he had parked in his own garage. This is fraud, I told them. Steele and his buddy are running a racket. By the end of the night, I had a list of 17 homeowners with similar stories. It was time to turn up the heat, exposing Steele's corruption. I started digging into Willow Creek HOA's financial records. HOAs are required by law to make certain financial documents available to homeowners. Steele had made it as difficult as possible to access them, but I wasn't backing down. I sent official requests for records. I checked public county filings, and then I found it. $80,000 labeled under landscaping improvements for a park that didn't exist. $10,000 a month paid to a consulting firm, registered to Steele's cousin. Tens of thousands in fines that had never been properly reported. Steele was running the HOA like his personal piggy bank. But the biggest smoking gun, the tow company payments. The HOA had paid thousands of dollars to Steele's buddy, Dale Curtis. On paper, it looked like they were paying for legitimate towing services. But I had 17 homeowners who swore their vehicles had been illegally taken. Proof of theft, proof of fraud, proof of corruption. I grinned. Now I had everything I needed to bury Steele. The ambush at the HOA meeting. A week later, I attended the next HOA board meeting. Steele sat at the head of the table, looking smug as ever. He greeted the room with his usual condescending smile. "All right, folks," he said, "let's keep this quick. First item on the agenda, community improvements." I stood up. "Actually, I'd like to discuss something before we begin." Steele raised an eyebrow. "This meeting has a set schedule." I slammed a thick stack of papers onto the table. Copies of financial records, screenshots, complaints, photos of every illegal tow. I want to talk about the $80,000 missing from the whole budget. I want to talk about the fake landscaping fees, and I really want to talk about how you and Dale Curtis have been illegally towing vehicles and extorting homeowners. The room went dead silent. Steele's smirk vanished. "You have no proof of any wrongdoing," he said, but his voice was shaking. I held up my phone and hit play. Tow guy's voicemail. "Yeah, Steele told me to take the truck. Said he'd handle any legal issues. He does this all the time." Gasps filled the room. Someone shouted, "You son of a..." And then, from the back of the room, a voice I didn't recognize. "I'd like to have a word with you, Mr. Steele." We all turned. Two men in dark suits stepped forward. One flashed a badge. Secret Service. Steele's face turned ghost white. I blinked. "Wait, what the hell is going on?" The agent turned to me. "We've been investigating Mr. Steele for some time now. Looks like you just gave us the final piece of the puzzle." Steele tried to bolt, but the agents grabbed him. "Jonathan Steele," one said, "you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy." I crossed my arms and smirked. "Mess with my truck? Enjoy prison, buddy." The room was frozen. Whole board members sat in stunned silence. My neighbors, who had suffered Steele's reign of terror, watched, wide-eyed, and Steele. He looked like he was about to pass out. The two Secret Service agents stood beside him, their expressions unreadable. "I don't understand," Steele stammered, his usual arrogance evaporating. "This is a mistake." One of the agents, a tall, serious-looking man, reached into his pocket and pulled out a warrant. He slapped it onto the table. "No mistake, Mr. Steele. You're under investigation for fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy." I folded my arms. "And don't forget stealing my damn truck." How the Secret Service got involved at this point, even I was a little confused. The whole scams were bad, but Secret Service? That seemed extreme. Steele's face had gone pale, and for the first time ever, he was speechless. One of the agents turned to me. "We've been watching Mr. Steele for a while," he said, "but thanks to your little presentation, we now have proof that he's been laundering money through the hole." I blinked. "Wait, what?" Steele finally found his voice. "This is insane. I just enforce the rules. That's my job." The agent ignored him. "Your hole's financials don't just contain fraud," he explained. "They're connected to a much larger real estate scam." He picked up the documents I had printed. "You noticed the landscaping improvements budget, right? That was just the tip of the iceberg. Steele's been funneling whole money into fake companies, then using those companies to move millions of dollars in illegal transactions." Steele's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. I raised an eyebrow. "So what you're saying is, he's not just a power-hungry whole tyrant. He's also a white-collar criminal." The agent nodded. "Bingo." Steele's pathetic escape attempt. Steele's eyes darted to the exit. I saw the panic rising in him. Then he ran. He shoved his chair back, nearly knocking over a woman sitting behind him, and bolted for the door. Big mistake. Before he made it 5 steps, the Secret Service agents tackled him. The whole room gasped as steel hit the ground with a heavy thud. One agent twisted his arms behind his back, while the other snapped handcuffs around his wrists. "Jonathan Steele," the agent said, "you're under arrest for fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. Anything you say can and will be used against you." The whole board members were silent. I folded my arms and smirked. "Guess those whole rules didn't protect you from federal charges, huh?" Steele struggled, but it was useless. He was hauled to his feet, completely defeated. "Linda, do something," he yelled at the HOA's secretary. Linda, who had spent the last 5 years forwarding fines to homeowners, just stared at him. Then she grabbed her purse, stood up, and walked straight out of the room. The fallout begins. After Steele was dragged out in cuffs, the room exploded. Board members whispered in frantic tones. Homeowners cheered. Someone actually popped open a bottle of wine. And me? I was just getting started. I stepped up to the podium, cleared my throat, and addressed the entire room. "Now that our beloved dictator is out of the picture, we need to talk about what happens next." A man in the crowd, Mr. Peterson, stood up. "We dissolve the whole, that's what." The room erupted in agreement. Dismantling Steele's empire. Turns out, Steele had written himself into multiple positions of power within the whole. He was the sole signatory on all whole bank accounts. He had amended the bylaws so only he could appoint new board members. He had extended his own term indefinitely. Basically, he ran the whole like a damn monarchy. Not anymore. I teamed up with a few neighbors, and together we launched a special meeting. With Steele gone, the board was too scared to fight back. Within 3 days, we did the following. Removed Steele's board members, all of whom mysteriously resigned. Elected a new whole president, Mr. Peterson, a retired lawyer. Opened an audit into all whole finances. Voted to permanently lower fines to a reasonable amount. Removed Steele's ridiculous no-truck rule. And then we made the biggest decision of all. We put dissolving the whole up for a vote. The final whole meeting, the community hall was packed. Even people who never came to meetings showed up. When the final vote was cast, the results were overwhelming. 92% voted to abolish the whole. That was it. Willow Creek Estates was officially whole-free. The crowd cheered. People hugged. Someone even set off fireworks in their backyard. And me? I finally got my truck back, for free. Epilogue: where is Steele now? Steele was charged with multiple counts of fraud and money laundering. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. He also had to pay restitution to the homeowners he scammed, over $500,000. Meanwhile, Willow Creek became a self-managed neighborhood. Homeowners saved thousands in ridiculous fees. And I never had to see a violation notice on my door again. As for Steele, the last I heard, he was working in the prison laundry. Mess with my truck? Enjoy folding sheets for the next 5 years, buddy. Even though Steele was in federal custody, his influence still poisoned the neighborhood. See, while the whole was technically dissolved, there was one big problem. The money. The whole had over $200,000 sitting in its accounts. That money was supposed to go toward maintenance, repairs, and community improvements. But since Steele had been laundering cash, the funds were now frozen pending an investigation. Worse, some homeowners wanted the whole back. The whole loyalists fight back. Despite everything Steele had done, there were still people, mostly his old cronies, who refused to let go of whole control. One of them, Linda Farrow, the whole secretary who had conveniently left when Steele was arrested. Now she was back, and she had plans. One day, I found a pamphlet on my doorstep. Reinstate the Willow Creek Whole. Vote to protect our community from chaos. I laughed out loud. Apparently, Linda and a few old board members were trying to bring back the whole, claiming that without it, the neighborhood would fall apart. And they weren't just talking. They were collecting signatures to put the whole reinstatement to a vote. If they got 51% of homeowners to sign, they could legally bring the whole back from the dead. I rallied the anti-whole army Oh, hell no. After everything we went through, after we exposed Steele's fraud, tore down his dictatorship, and freed the neighborhood, there was no way we were going back. So I did what I do best. I fought back. I printed my own counter flyers. Don't let the hoe scam you again. I went door to door, talking to homeowners, reminding them of how Steele and his board extorted money from them. I dug up legal documents proving that the hoe's financial records were still under federal investigation, meaning reinstating the hoe could put homeowners at risk of lawsuits. I wasn't alone. Mr. Peterson, Mrs. Campbell, and dozens of other neighbors joined me. This wasn't just a petition fight. This was war. Linda's dirty tricks. When Linda realized she wasn't getting enough signatures, she started playing dirty. Fake signatures. She and her cronies forged homeowner signatures to make it look like more people supported the hoe. Fear tactics. She spread lies, telling elderly homeowners that without a hoe, their property values would plummet. Illegal fines again. She even tried to issue fines to homeowners who opposed her. She thought no one would notice. She thought wrong. Catching Linda in the act. One night, Mr. Peterson, our newly elected community leader, called me. "You're going to want to see this," he said. I met him outside a small printing shop downtown. He pointed at the security camera. Linda and her group had been caught printing forged signatures. We had video proof of them literally faking the petition. It was game over. The final hoe showdown. The next day, we held a community-wide vote. Linda and her remaining loyalists tried one last desperate attempt to push the hoe reinstatement. She stood in front of the crowd, fake smile plastered on her face. "I know there's been some confusion," she began, "but we need the hoe to keep our neighborhood safe, clean, and organized." I stepped up, holding the security footage on my phone. "Linda," I interrupted, "why don't you explain why you were caught forging petition signatures?" Her face dropped. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone in the back shouted, "Are you serious?" Linda stammered, That's fake. A lie." I smirked. "Cool. Let's play the video." I hit play, and the footage rolled. Linda, standing in the print shop, holding stacks of forged documents, laughing with her cronies, caught red-handed. The crowd erupted. Linda's own supporters turned on her. Mrs. Campbell stood up and yelled, "You people are nothing but crooks." The final vote. 94% rejected the whole reinstatement. It was over. The aftermath. Linda and her group were reported for fraud and forging documents. The county barred them from ever managing a community association again. The last remnants of the hoe died that day. No more secret meetings, no more fines, no more ridiculous rules. The $200,000 frozen funds. Eventually, they were used to repair roads, improve drainage, and install new playgrounds, all without an hoe. Linda moved away in disgrace. No one missed her. And as for me, I finally got to park my truck in my own damn driveway. No tickets, no fines, no power-hungry dictators breathing down my neck. Just freedom. I thought it was over. After Steele was arrested, after Linda's pathetic coup attempt failed, after the community voted overwhelmingly to abolish the hoe forever, I figured I could finally relax. But I underestimated something. Desperate, power-hungry people don't go down without a fight. The letter that changed everything. One evening, I was sitting on my porch, enjoying the simple pleasure of being left the hell alone, when I noticed a letter stuffed under my door. No postage, no return address, just a folded piece of paper, ominously sitting there like a mafia threat. I opened it. "Dear homeowner, cease all actions against the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. We are in the process of reinstating the hoe, and you will comply with all rules and regulations. Failure to do so will result in legal action. Consider this your only warning. Sincerely, the Willow Creek Hoe Board." I blinked. Then I laughed. These clowns were trying to scare me with a fake hoe. I immediately texted Mr. Peterson, Mrs. Campbell, and a few other neighbors. "Me? Did anyone else just get a threat letter from the Willow Creek Hoe?" Mr. Peterson: What? There is no hole anymore. Mrs. Campbell: I got one too. These people don't know when to quit. Clearly, someone wasn't accepting defeat. The fake hole exposed. The next day, I did some digging. Turns out, Linda and her last few delusional followers had filed paperwork with the county, trying to reincorporate the hole under a new name, but still claiming authority over the neighborhood. Their plan? Trick homeowners into thinking the hole was legally back. Start issuing fines again. Slowly force people into compliance through fear. I had to shut this down. Fast. Destroying the hole again. Step 1. Public humiliation. That night, I printed hundreds of flyers. Warning: scam alert. A small group of former hole members is trying to trick you into believing the hole is back. This is a lie. The hole was officially dissolved, and their attempt to bring it back is illegal. If you receive threats or fake fines, report them to the county immediately. Do not pay these scammers. By morning, every house in the neighborhood had a flyer on its door. The reaction was glorious. Neighbors were furious. People stormed Linda's house, demanding explanations. Others called the county office, reporting the fraudulent hole filings. By noon, the county officially rejected their attempt to reincorporate the hole, and by evening, Linda had a nice little visit from the sheriff. Her scam was over before it even started. The final desperate move. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. A week later, I woke up to find a boot on my truck, a bright yellow metal clamp locking my wheel in place, and a fake parking violation ticket taped to my windshield. Hole infraction, vehicle violation, unauthorized parking. Fine, $500. Pay immediately or vehicle will be towed. I saw red. There was no hole, no parking restrictions, no authority behind this ticket. This was just Linda and her minions, making one last desperate play for control. Time for my revenge. I wasn't going to play nice anymore. I grabbed my tools and went to work. I removed the boot in under 10 minutes. I took the fake ticket and made 100 copies. I wrote, "Fake, illegal, do not pay," across each one. Then I went door to door, exposing their scam again. And just for fun, I dropped one of their fake tickets off at the sheriff's office. The knock at Linda's door. That evening, 2 sheriff's deputies showed up at Linda's house. She actually tried to argue with them. I was just trying to enforce community standards. She protested. One of the deputies folded his arms. "Ma'am, you're issuing fraudulent fines under a fake organization. That's criminal impersonation." Linda paled. It was just a misunderstanding." "Right," the deputy said. "Tell it to the judge." And with that, Linda was arrested. The true end of the hole. With Linda gone, the last remnants of the hole died for good. No more fake fines. No more fear-mongering. And most importantly, no more hole. The neighborhood finally relaxed. Mr. Peterson and I led a final meeting where we officially organized a self-managed community association. No ridiculous rules, just simple things like voluntary community cleanups, a neighborhood watch, an emergency fund for maintenance, and best of all, no more power-hungry board members ruining our lives. Epilogue: where is Linda now? She pleaded guilty to fraud and paid a hefty fine. She moved away in shame. No one heard from her ever again. And as for me, I parked my truck in my driveway, cracked open a beer, and enjoyed my whole free life. No threats, no fake tickets, no dictators, just peace and quiet. Sentence case converter. I should have known it wasn't over. Sure, Linda was gone. The fake HOA was exposed and destroyed. The neighborhood was finally free. Or so I thought. Because someone still wanted revenge. The mysterious complaint. A month after Linda's downfall, I got a letter from the county zoning board. Notice of violation. Your property is in violation of local zoning codes. Unpermitted structure, garage, unapproved driveway modification, unauthorized commercial activity. I frowned. Commercial activity? What the hell? I flipped the page. Complainant. Anonymous. Oh, I knew exactly who was behind this. Someone from the old HOA cult had gone straight to the county, hoping to weaponize local bureaucracy against me. Classic HOA revenge. The investigation begins. The next morning, a county inspector showed up at my door. A guy in a button-up, clipboard in hand, the kind of government worker who lives to enforce obscure rules no one's ever heard of. I'm here about a complaint against your property, he said, looking around like I was hiding a meth lab in my garage. I crossed my arms. Aha, what exactly am I in violation of? He squinted at his clipboard. Well, according to the complaint, you've, been running an illegal auto repair business out of your garage. I stared at him. Then I burst out laughing. Are you serious? I said. I don't run a business. I just work on my own truck. He frowned. Well, we still need to check. The garage inspection. I let the inspector into my garage. No customers, no employees, just my own truck, some tools, and a project car I was restoring. This is just a personal garage, he muttered. Yeah, no kidding. He made some notes, sighed, and said, well, this isn't an issue, but I still need to check the other complaints. Next, the driveway. Apparently, my slightly widened driveway was a problem. You technically extended this without a permit, the inspector said. I rolled my eyes. So what? It's gravel. Well, you might need to file for an after-the-fact permit. And finally, the garage itself. This one was actually legit. Apparently, my detached garage, which had been there for over 10 years, didn't have a finalized permit. And guess what? That tiny technicality meant I could be fined $5,000. The HOA's sneaky revenge plan. I knew what was happening. One of the old HOA snakes had dug through old records, looking for anything they could use against me. They couldn't control me anymore, so they did the next best thing, sixing the county on me, fighting back. Again, they thought I'd roll over and pay. Nope. I did what any sane person would do. I lawyered up. I called a buddy who specialized in property law, and he walked me through my options. The unpermitted structure fine. I filed for a retroactive permit, which cost me $50 instead of $5,000. The driveway issue, I got a signed exemption because it had been there for over 5 years without complaints. The illegal business complaint, completely dismissed. In the end, the county dropped everything, finding the snake in the grass. I wasn't about to let this slide. I pulled some strings, made some calls, and found out who filed the complaints. It was Doug. Doug was one of Linda's old cronies, a guy who used to be the HOA treasurer. Turns out, after the HOA died, he had been stewing in bitterness ever since. And now, he was actively trying to make my life hell. Time for payback. Now I could have let it go, but after everything, I wanted revenge. So I started digging into Doug's property records. And guess what? Doug had an illegal shed, no permit, built right up to his neighbor's fence. He had rented out part of his house, in violation of county zoning rules. His property had violations going back years. Oh, I wasn't going to report him. No, I did something way worse. I sent him a single text. Me, hey Doug, heard you like zoning laws. Just checked your place. You might want to fix a few things before someone else files a complaint. Silence. A few days later, Doug's shed mysteriously disappeared. His tenant moved out. I never heard from him again. The true end of the HOA's revenge. After that, the HOA's influence officially died. No more petty complaints. No more revenge schemes. No more bureaucratic attacks. We had finally won. Epilogue. The neighborhood today. The old HOA house where Steele and his cronies ran things. Sold and renovated. The $200,000 in frozen HOA funds. Used for actual community improvements. The self-run community association thrived, no HOA dictatorship required. I kept my truck parked in my driveway, and no one could say a damn thing about it. For the first time in years, Willow Creek was actually a peaceful place to live. And as for me, I sat on my porch, cracked open a cold one, and watched the sunset. Because for the first time in forever, the HOA was dead, and it was never coming back. Convert to sentence case. Clear. Converted text. I should have known it wasn't over. Sure, Linda was gone. The fake hole was exposed and destroyed. The neighborhood was finally free. Or so I thought. Because someone still wanted revenge. The mysterious complaint. A month after Linda's downfall, I got a letter from the county zoning board. Notice of violation. Your property is in violation of local zoning codes. Unpermitted structure, garage. Unapproved driveway modification. Unauthorized commercial activity. It frowned. Commercial activity? What the hell? I flipped the page. Complainant. Anonymous. Oh, I knew exactly who was behind this. Someone from the old Ho cult had gone straight to the county, hoping to weaponize local bureaucracy against me. Classic Ho revenge. The investigation begins. The next morning, a county inspector showed up at my door. A guy in a button-up, clipboard in hand, the kind of government worker who lives to enforce obscure rules no one's ever heard of. I'm here about a complaint against your property, he said, looking around like I was hiding a meth lab in my garage. I crossed my arms. Aha! What exactly am I in violation of? He squinted at his clipboard. Well, according to the complaint, you've, been running an illegal auto repair business out of your garage. I stared at him. Then I burst out laughing. Are you serious? I said. I don't run a business. I just work on my own truck. He frowned. Well, we still need to check. The garage inspection. I let the inspector into my garage. No customers. No employees. Just my own truck, some tools, and a project car I was restoring. This is just a personal garage, he muttered. Yeah, no kidding. He made some notes, sighed, and said, well, this isn't an issue, but I still need to check the other complaints. Next, the driveway. Apparently, my slightly widened driveway was a problem. You technically extended this without a permit, the inspector said. I rolled my eyes. So what? It's gravel. Well, you might need to file for an after-the-fact permit. And finally, the garage itself. This one was actually legit. Apparently, my detached garage, which had been there for over 10 years, didn't have a finalized permit. And guess what? That tiny technicality meant I could be fined $5,000. The Ho's sneaky revenge plan. I knew what was happening. One of the old Ho snakes had dug through old records, looking for anything they could use against me. They couldn't control me anymore, so they did the next best thing, sixing the county on me. Fighting back, again, they thought I'd roll over and pay. Nope. I did what any sane person would do. I lawyered up. I called a buddy who specialized in property law, and he walked me through my options. The unpermitted structure fine. I filed for a retroactive permit, which cost me $50 instead of $5,000. The driveway issue. I got a signed exemption because it had been there for over 5 years without complaints. The illegal business complaint, completely dismissed. In the end, the county dropped everything. Finding the snake in the grass. I wasn't about to let this slide. I pulled some strings, made some calls, and found out who filed the complaints. It was Doug. Doug was one of Linda's old cronies, a guy who used to be the Ho treasurer. Turns out, after the Ho died, he had been stewing in bitterness ever since. And now, he was actively trying to make my life hell. Time for payback. Now, I could have let it go. But after everything, I wanted revenge. So I started digging into Doug's property records. And guess what? Doug had an illegal shed, no permit, built right up to his neighbor's fence. He had rented out part of his house, in violation of county zoning rules. His property had violations going back years. Oh, I wasn't going to report him. No, I did something way worse. I sent him a single text. Me, hey Doug, heard you like zoning laws. Just checked your place. You might want to fix a few things before someone else files a complaint. Silence. A few days later, Doug's shed mysteriously disappeared. His tenant moved out. I never heard from him again. The true end of the hoe's revenge. After that, the hoe's influence officially died. No more petty complaints. No more revenge schemes. No more bureaucratic attacks. We had finally won. Epilogue. The neighborhood today. The old hoe house where Steele and his cronies ran things. Sold and renovated. The $200,000 in frozen hoe funds. Used for actual community improvements. The self-run community association thrived. No hoe dictatorship required. I kept my truck parked in my driveway, and no one could say a damn thing about it. For the first time in years, Willow Creek was actually a peaceful place to live. And as for me, I sat on my porch, cracked open a cold one, and watched the sunset. Because for the first time in forever, the hoe was dead, and it was never coming back. I should have known the hoe snakes weren't finished. I thought we had crushed them, exposing their scams, outmaneuvering their revenge plots, and finally shutting them down for good. But some people just can't accept defeat, and this time, they went too far. The night everything changed, it was around 2 a.m. when I heard it. Thump, thump, thump. A heavy pounding on my front door. I jolted awake, my heart hammering. Was it a neighbor in trouble? A break-in? I grabbed my phone and crept to the peephole, and what I saw made my blood run cold. 2 men, dressed in hoe's security uniforms, black tactical vests, patches on their arms, and holy hell, were they carrying guns. The hoe police. I yanked open the door just enough to glare at them. The hell is this? I snapped. The taller guy, let's call him fake cop number 1, cleared his throat. Sir, you are in violation of community safety regulations, he said in a deep, fake authority voice. You need to step outside immediately. I blinked. Then I laughed. You're joking, right? I scoffed. The hoe is dead. There's no security team, and you sure as hell don't have authority here. Fake cop number 2, the shorter, sweetier one, shifted uncomfortably. We're reinstating the hoe, he said, a little too defensively, and until then, we're enforcing temporary emergency measures. Emergency measures? Oh, this was next-level insanity. They crossed the line. I started to tell them to go to hell, but then I heard it. A voice from behind me. What the hell is going on? It was my sister, Rachel. She was visiting for the weekend and had come downstairs, rubbing sleet from her eyes. And that's when things escalated. Fake cop number 1 suddenly lunged forward and grabbed her wrist. You need to come with us, he barked. We have questions for you. Rachel yanked back. Get your damn hands off me. I snapped. I shoved past them, stepping between Rachel and these wannabe cops. You touch her again, and you'll regret it, I growled. Now get the hell off my property. Fake cop number 1 glared at me. Then, click. He pulled out a pair of handcuffs. You're both being detained for violating community security laws, he announced. And before I could react, they actually tried to arrest my sister. The most satisfying call of my life. They barely had Rachel's wrist in the cuff before I whipped out my phone and made the best call I've ever made in my life. 911, the dispatcher answered. I kept my voice calm. Yeah, I have 2 armed men impersonating law enforcement trying to kidnap my sister in front of my house. That got their attention. Fake cop number 2 panicked. Hey, let's just talk. Too late. I had 911 on speaker, and the dispatcher had heard everything. You said they're armed, the dispatcher asked. Yes, I said, staring directly at fake cop number 1, and they just attempted an unlawful detainment. Officers are en route, the dispatcher said. Stay inside and lock your door. Fake cop 1 froze. Fake cop 2 bolted. And within 4 minutes, I saw flashing red and blue lights flood the street. But wait, it gets better. The 2 fake cops tried to talk their way out of it. This is just a misunderstanding. Fake cop number 1 stammered as real deputies surrounded them. We're private security, fake cop number 2 added, sweat pouring down his face. One of the deputies narrowed his eyes. For who? For the whole, fake cop number 1 muttered. The deputy folded his arms. The whole that no longer exists. Silence. Busted. And then the Secret Service arrived. Now, here's the part where things went from crazy to legendary. See, what these idiots didn't know was that Rachel, my sister, is a Secret Service agent. Yep, and she was pissed. As soon as the cops detained the fake HOA cops, she made one phone call. 10 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up, and out stepped 2 very serious-looking men in dark suits, federal agents. I will never forget the look on fake cop number 1's face when one of them said, "You assaulted and attempted to detain a federal agent. The fallout? The whole cult finally falls." Oh, they were so screwed. The fake HOA cops, arrested for impersonating law enforcement, illegal detainment, and assault. The guns they were carrying? Unregistered. More felony charges. The idiot who recruited them? None other than Doug, the bitter ex-treasurer. Doug was arrested the next day, and when the investigation unfolded, it turned out these guys had been harassing other neighbors, trying to scare people into following their imaginary HOA rules. They thought they were building an empire. Instead, they built their own downfall. The sweetest victory. By the end of the week, every surviving HOA loyalist either moved out or went silent. Doug and the fake cops facing serious charges. My sister, a total badass, back at work like nothing happened. And me, I finally sat back knowing the HOA was dead. For real this time. And if anyone ever tried to bring it back, well, let's just say they'd have one hell of a fight waiting for them. I had won. The fake HOA cops were rotting in jail. Doug was screwed beyond saving, and the entire HOA cult had finally completely collapsed. I should have been able to relax, but there was one last loose end. A final piece of unfinished business. The last HOA meeting. Ever. A few weeks after the great fake cop debacle, I got a certified letter in the mail from the county clerk's office. Notice of final HOA dissolution hearing. The Homeowners Association of Willow Creek is scheduled for formal legal dissolution under county law. Date, Friday, 7:00 p.m. Location, Willow Creek Community Center. Attendance, open to all homeowners. Oh, hell yes. I wasn't about to miss the official funeral of the HOA. I spread the word. Everyone who had ever been tormented by these power-hungry idiots was invited. By the time Friday rolled around, the place was packed. The meeting from hell. I walked into the community center, and the air was thick with tension. On one side, the normal homeowners, the people who had suffered under years of HOA tyranny. On the other, the last few HOA loyalists, the bitter remains of Linda's old regime. Doug wasn't there. Jail will do that to a man. But sitting at the head of the table was Trish. Trish had been the HOA secretary, one of Linda's most loyal minions. And even now, even after everything, she was still trying to hold on. She cleared her throat, looking around the room like a queen addressing her subjects. The HOA, she announced, is not dead. The room exploded with laughter. She scowled. This community needs order, structure. We cannot allow ourselves to fall into anarchy. Someone yelled, "Anarchy? You mean freedom?" More cheers. Trish slammed a folder onto the table. "This petition," she said, "has over 20 signatures from homeowners who still believe in the HOA, and according to our bylaws, we have a right to reinstate it." That's when the county clerk cut her off. "Actually, no," he said, adjusting his glasses. That's not how this works." She blinked. "Excuse me." The clerk pulled out his own folder and dropped the bombshell. "The county's final verdict. The whole of Willow Creek," he said, "has been found in multiple legal violations. Its leadership was engaged in fraud, embezzlement, and illegal enforcement actions." Trish's face turned red. "Furthermore," the clerk continued, "a majority of homeowners have filed for permanent dissolution, and under county law, once an HOA is dissolved for misconduct, it cannot be reinstated." The room went dead silent. Then, applause. Loud, thunderous applause. Trish looked absolutely defeated. She had lost. The HOA was officially, legally, and forever dead. The final revenge. But I wasn't done yet. See, there was one last thing that needed to happen. As the meeting ended, I stood up. "Before we all go," I said, "I have something to say." People turned to me. I pulled out a manila envelope. "This," I said, "is a copy of an official lawsuit I'm filing against the former HOA board." Gasps. See, while the HOA was dissolved, its old board members were still personally liable for the scams they ran. And I wasn't the only one. Multiple homeowners stood up, one after another, holding their own copies. Doug, Linda, Trish. Every single corrupt board member was about to get sued into oblivion. Trish looked like she was about to faint. I grinned. "Have a great night, everyone." And with that, I walked out, the taste of victory sweeter than ever. Epilogue. Where are they now? Doug, the bitter treasurer, still in jail, got hit with 6 months and a permanent restraining order from the neighborhood. Fake HOA cops charged with impersonating officers. One got 5 years, the other 3. Linda, after fleeing town, she was tracked down for embezzlement charges. She tried to start another HOA scam elsewhere. Didn't work. Trish, bankrupt. The lawsuits drained her dry. She tried to run an independent community council, but nobody cared. The whole house sold to a young family who turned it into a beautiful garden home. Me, living my best life. No fines, no harassment, no stupid HOA rules. Final thoughts. The death of the HOA. This whole nightmare started with petty fines and power-hungry idiots. And it ended with a criminal investigation, lawsuits, people going to jail, and the permanent death of the HOA. For years, they ruled over us with iron fists. But in the end, their greed, corruption, and stupidity were their own downfall. Willow Creek was finally free. And if anyone ever tried to bring back an HOA, well, they'd have to go through me first.